Hello and welcome to the Hero Coaching Podcast with me, your host Mark Corner, empowering you to be the best possible version of yourself. Hello, and welcome to another Hero Coaching Podcast with me, your put my teeth back in, with me, your host Mark Corner. Oh dear. Anyway, I'm not going to edit that out because life isn't perfect. Anyway, I'm going to talk today about self-compassion. And I think this is something that all of us probably don't have enough of, or there might be some there, or you might not be aware that there's some there, or not at all. So what do we mean by self-compassion? Well, self-compassion itself is when you have concern for other people. So it's a deep awareness of and sympathy for another's suffering, according to WordWeb. The human quality of understanding the suffering of others and wanting to do something about it. So it's all about looking out for other people. So, in other words, it's you're looking after yourself with self-compassion. The founding studies, people who are compassionate towards themselves are generally a lot happier. They have a more optimistic outlook on life, and they are more grateful compared to those who are harder on themselves. So if your inner critic is more dominant than your compassionate self, which is probably, I don't know, the case for a lot of people. There certainly seems to be a lot of unhappy people these days, but that's just how they may have been brought up, or some things in the past. So what is it? There's three elements to self-compassion. It's being kind to yourself, being supportive and gentle, being mindful. So you're being aware of that you're actually suffering and not doing anything about it. I mean, you're doing something about it, I beg your pardon. So if you're being self-judgmental and self-critical, then you've got to step in and say, wait a minute, you've got to step back. You've got to be, as Buddhists say, you've got to be the observer. Be like there's a word for it, isn't there? A mediator. It's like two people having an argument, and there's just like one, because as we know, the brain likes negativity rather than positivity. So and you've got to realise that we are human and we all make mistakes. So if you make a mistake, be aware of it, and don't use maladaptive coping mechanisms to try and sort it out. Use self-compassion. So if self-compassion is that great, why don't we see more of it? We tend to turn to other things. We might eat something, or start feeling sorry for ourselves, or we might make excuses for the way we're behaving. Oh, I'm always like this, and I can't do much about it. Self-compassion is taking responsibility for your own behaviour, even when it's bad, and accepting ourselves as being human. So this allows us to see things clearly and change our behaviour, so we don't stagnate, but make progress towards our goals. If you're self-compassionate towards yourself, you become a lot more resilient person. So you don't tend to suffer as much, and you don't tend to listen to your bully or your inner critic. So, because thinking becomes a habit, and you, more often than not, you're always going to go to the negative side because that's just the way the brain is. You know, it loves negativity. That's how I survived all these years. Always on the lookout for danger. So when there is danger, or probably not any danger, you've got to stand back a bit and just look at your situation, or the thing that you're worrying about, or whatever it is, or why you're being hard on yourself, and come in and treat yourself like you would a good friend, because they would want to help you and not treat you badly. And it's not all about you. People who are compassionate towards themselves are better able to forgive others too. If you're hard on yourself, then you're far more likely to develop problems such as depression and anxiety, and you won't be effective at implementing coping strategies. Some telltale signs that you might need to work on your self-compassion. Nothing is ever good enough. Your way is always the right way. You tend to keep going over your mistakes over and over again. Black and white thinking with no grey area, and you have an intense fear of failure. So, what can we do to work on being less critical? Just be aware of what you're saying to yourself. What's the tone of voice in your head? Even if it's in your head or you're speaking aloud, is it harsh? Is it kind? Is it like a cruel coach? I read somewhere once that somebody said, which is quite a good description, like trying to make you do something when you don't want to. And whose voice is that? Is it yours or is it somebody else's? Just when you're going through that self-criticism, step in and just say to your inner critic, I know you're disappointed, but you're causing me pain. And then what we're going to do is, you've got to reframe your criticism. You let your nervousness get the better of you. I know you can do this. Let's take a long walk and strategize how to accept and fulfill the next speaking invitation. This may sound a bit strange thing to do, but if you just stroke your arm, or just get both your hands and stroke the top of your arms, this can be quite soothing. I don't know if you ever try it. It may seem a bit of a strange thing to do, and it might feel a bit uncomfortable. But try it anyway and see what happens. And it's all about being just a little bit less harsher on yourself. Yeah. And to increase your self-compassion, try doing things like yoga. I do Qigong, and I find that works for me. My mind goes quiet when I'm doing Qigong. I don't quite know why. I stand in the garden and with my back to our hedgerow and just look at the tree. And sometimes I close my eyes, and I've even done it blindfolded, and that's quite an experience because you've got sensory deprivation. Or you could just lie on the ground, just being aware of your body, or you can do meditation. Because all these things, for example, I mean, for me, one thing I really like to do is have a bath or a shower. Researchers find that self-compassion brings about more constant feelings of self-worth than does self-esteem, so that's quite big. That's because self-esteem may depend on comparing yourself favourably to others and putting them down, while self-compassion is an intrinsic acceptance of yourself. It will help you if you're going through a rough time in your life, such as having a breakup with a partner, and you will tend to have quicker recovery times, and you'll bounce back quicker. Women specifically who accept their physical imperfections have a more positive body image, no matter their body mass index. Women with greater self-compassion are less likely to have an eating disorder. So that's another thing to think about as well. And I think that is a thing with men, because that's something I used to do, comfort eat, to try and make myself feel better, and that doesn't always work. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up now. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast as much as I have. And why not practice some self-compassion on yourself? It could be anything. Talking to yourself nice, going for a walk, doing something you enjoy. I mean, to me, they're all examples of self-compassion. When you're neglecting yourself, you'll know, because there's pain. So, until the next time, have a great day. Much love. Love you all. Take care. And see you in the next podcast. Bye for now.